When life becomes difficult, the instinct most of us have is either to run away from the problem or to drown ourselves in it. Both extremes can be damaging. On one hand, pretending that everything is fine when it clearly isn't only builds pressure inside, which eventually erupts in ways we never intended. On the other hand, allowing the hardship to consume our entire identity reduces us to nothing but our struggle. We stop seeing ourselves as human beings with dreams, strengths, and dignity, and we start seeing ourselves only as victims of circumstance. Neither of these approaches will bring us closer to happiness. The first step, then, is acknowledgement. We must be honest enough to say, yes, I am going through a difficult time. Yes, I feel pain. Yes, I feel uncertain, maybe even broken. There is no weakness in admitting this. In fact, it requires courage. By acknowledging hardship, you strip it of its hidden power. What you refuse to confront ends up controlling you. What you name, what you bring into the light, loses the ability to silently poison your soul. But acknowledgement alone is not the end. Too often people confuse recognition with surrender. They think, because I have admitted my life is hard, then that's all I am, a person with a hard life. That is where we make the critical mistake. Your difficulty may be part of your story, but it is not the whole story. You are more than your divorce, more than your illness, more than your financial struggle, more than the betrayal you experienced. These events are chapters in the book of your life, but they are not the title of the book. One of the most liberating psychological shifts we can make is separating who we are from what we go through. The storm is not the sky, it only passes through the sky. You are the sky, vast, unshaken, capable of holding many storms, yet never reduced to them. This perspective allows us to endure with dignity. We stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what can I learn from this? How can I grow through this? That single shift moves us from being passive sufferers to active participants in our own healing. Philosophers and spiritual teachers throughout history have echoed this principle. The Stoics spoke of focusing only on what lies within our control, letting go of what does not. The Quran reminds us that after hardship comes ease, not in the sense that life will be perfect, but in the sense that every burden carries within it the seed of growth and eventual relief. Modern psychology too shows us that resilience is not the absence of suffering, but the ability to carry suffering without letting it define the rest of who we are. And let's be clear, acknowledging pain does not mean indulging in self-pity. There is a difference. Self-pity freezes us in place. It says, this is unfair, and therefore I cannot move. Honest acknowledgement, on the other hand, says, this hurts, but I will not let it end me. I will rise with it. That subtle but powerful distinction is what allows people in the harshest conditions to still radiate hope, and what allows some of the most outwardly successful people to collapse under pressure because they confuse denial with strength. I want you to think about this in your own life. What have you allowed to define you? Is it a failure from the past? A loss you never fully grieved? A criticism someone once made about you? If you carry those moments as your identity, you rob yourself of the possibility of joy. But the moment you say, this happened, but it is not me, it is something I went through, you begin to free yourself. You create space for happiness to exist alongside hardship, instead of waiting for hardship to disappear before you allow yourself to be happy. And here lies the deeper truth. Happiness is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to not let pain own you. When you acknowledge hardship and place it in its rightful position, not as your master, but as your teacher, you open the door to living with both honesty and hope. You accept reality without surrendering to it. So remember this, life may write difficult sentences into your story, but you hold the pen that decides how the paragraph ends. Acknowledge the hardship, yes, but never ever let it define you. One of the greatest misconceptions people carry about happiness is that it is something waiting for them at the end of a road. They tell themselves, when I get that job, then I'll be happy. When I pay off this debt, then I'll be happy. When people finally recognize me, then I'll be happy. It becomes this distant prize, always just out of reach, always dependent on circumstances falling neatly into place. But life, as we know, rarely arranges itself so perfectly. There will always be a new challenge, a new worry, a new imperfection in the picture. If happiness is postponed until everything is ideal, you will never experience it. Happiness is not a destination you arrive at. It is a practice you commit to every single day. Think of it like exercise. No one says, once I exercise for 2 weeks, I'll never need to exercise again. It doesn't work that way. It's something you choose and repeat. Not once, not occasionally, but consistently. In the same way, happiness requires discipline. It requires us to make deliberate choices about how we think, how we respond, and how we focus our attention. The mistake we often make is waiting for happiness to happen to us, as if it were an accident of fate. But happiness is not accidental, it is intentional. It begins in the small, ordinary decisions we make. For example, choosing to pause and notice a moment of beauty instead of rushing past it, choosing to forgive instead of holding on to resentment, choosing gratitude even when we feel entitled to complain. These are not grand, dramatic actions, but they build the architecture of a joyful life. Psychologists have long spoken about the hedonic treadmill. It means that no matter what good things come into your life, you quickly return to a baseline of dissatisfaction if you do not actively cultivate gratitude and presence. That's why people can achieve incredible wealth or success and still feel empty. External achievements can give us pleasure, yes, but they cannot guarantee lasting happiness. Only internal practices can do that. And there is something profoundly empowering in this truth. Because if happiness depended on circumstances alone, then many of us would be disqualified from it. But if happiness is a practice, then it lies within the reach of every person regardless of where they stand in life. A person with very little can live in deep joy because they choose to nurture it. A person with everything can live in despair because they neglect it. I want you to think of happiness as a garden. If you water it, tend to it, and protect it from weeds, it flourishes. If you ignore it, it dries out, even if the soil was once fertile. Every act of kindness, every moment of gratitude, every time you choose optimism over bitterness, you are watering that garden, and over time what grows inside you becomes stronger than what happens around you. Now, some people may ask, but isn't choosing happiness during hardship a form of denial? Absolutely not. Denial ignores reality. Choosing happiness acknowledges reality but refuses to surrender to it. It's the difference between saying, I am in pain, therefore life is meaningless, versus saying, I am in pain, but life still holds meaning. Happiness does not erase sorrow, it sits beside it. It is the light you keep burning, even in a room filled with shadows. Think of those moments when you have been struggling, yet a small act of joy lifted you, someone's smile, a prayer whispered with sincerity, a kind word you gave or received. Did those moments eliminate the hardship? No. But they shifted your state, even if for a while, reminding you that hardship is not all there is. That is the power of practicing happiness, it interrupts despair. The great thinkers of history understood this. The Stoics emphasized the discipline of training the mind to focus on what is within control. Spiritual traditions across the world speak of gratitude as a key to peace. Modern neuroscience confirms that our brains rewire themselves through repetition, meaning that the more often we practice joy, the easier it becomes to feel joy. Happiness then is not random, it is cultivated. So, as you wake up each day, don't ask, will today make me happy? Ask instead, how can I practice happiness today? Maybe it's by smiling at someone, by thanking the Creator for even one blessing, by noticing the beauty of a sunset, or by refusing to dwell on a negative thought. These choices are small, but their power accumulates. Like drops of water filling a vessel, they eventually overflow into a life defined not by waiting for happiness, but by living it. And here is the reflection I want to leave with you. Stop postponing happiness to a future that may never arrive. The only time you truly own is this moment. If you cannot choose happiness here, you will not find it there. So decide right now that happiness is not a place you reach someday, it is the road you walk every day. When we look at hardship, our natural instinct is to see it as something purely negative, something to avoid, to resent, or to escape as quickly as possible. But here's a truth we often overlook: the very moments we label as setbacks are often the exact moments that shape us most profoundly. Growth rarely happens in times of comfort. It is in the difficult seasons, in the testing moments, in the situations where we are stretched to our limits, that the greatest transformations take place. Think about it. No one grows stronger muscles by sitting still. Muscles are strengthened through resistance. The very weight that feels heavy in your hands is what gives your body the ability to carry more tomorrow. In the same way, the struggles of life, though heavy, become the resistance that strengthens your soul, your character, your resilience. Now, this is not to romanticize suffering. No one here is being told to go out and seek pain. Struggles are hard, and sometimes they feel unbearable. But what we can choose is how we frame them. If you see every difficulty as an enemy, you will live in constant battle. If you see every difficulty as a teacher, you will begin to find meaning even in the most painful chapters. Psychologists call this cognitive reframing. It means changing the way you interpret an event so that it no longer holds the same destructive power over you. Instead of saying, "This failure proves I'm worthless," you begin to say, "This failure is evidence that I tried and it's teaching me how to try differently." Instead of saying, "This loss has destroyed me," you begin to say, "This loss has shown me what truly matters and how deeply I can love." The facts may remain the same, the event doesn't change, but your interpretation transforms your relationship with it. And history is filled with examples. Many of the most influential thinkers, inventors, and leaders did not rise in spite of hardship, but because of it. They reframed their struggles into stepping stones. A setback became a redirection. A rejection became protection from something that wasn't meant for them. And sometimes the very thing that felt like a breaking point became the birth of something new and greater than they had ever imagined. Spiritually too, we are reminded of this again and again. Hardship, when faced with patience and perspective, is never wasted. It refines us, it teaches us reliance, it humbles us, it deepens our empathy for others. Without struggle, many of us would remain shallow, untested, and unaware of our true capacity. It is often in the dark soil of difficulty that the seeds of wisdom and maturity begin to grow. So the question is not, how can I avoid struggle? Because life will not allow that. The real question is, what will I do with my struggle? How will I allow it to shape me? Some people go through hardship and become bitter. Others go through the same hardship and become better. The difference lies in the way they frame the experience. I know some of you may be carrying deep wounds. Perhaps you have been betrayed. Perhaps you've lost someone you love. Perhaps you've been through disappointment after disappointment. And in those moments, it is easy to feel like life is only subtracting from you. But pause for a moment and ask yourself, what has this taught me? How has this hardship revealed my own strength? What virtues like patience, compassion, or courage has it awakened in me? That reflection alone can shift your heart from despair to determination. The philosopher Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow." When you find meaning in your suffering, when you reframe it as part of your growth, it becomes bearable. You may not always understand it in the moment, but if you choose to trust that struggle carries wisdom within it, you walk with a strength that hardship cannot take away. And so the next time you face difficulty, remember it is not just an obstacle, it is also an invitation to rise, to mature, to discover parts of yourself you did not know existed. The storm may feel like it is tearing you apart, but it is also reshaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more capable of carrying light into the world. So hold on to this truth. Your struggles are not only breaking you down, they are building you up. And if you learn to reframe them, you will walk away not weaker, but transformed. One of the most overlooked truths about happiness is that it is not cultivated in isolation. No matter how strong you think you are influenced by the people and environments you expose yourself to. Human beings are social creatures, and our minds, whether we realize it or not, absorb energy from the company we keep. If you spend enough time around negativity, it seeps into your thinking. If you surround yourself with hope and encouragement, that too begins to shape your outlook. It's almost like walking into a room filled with perfume versus a room filled with smoke. You don't have to try hard to carry the scent with you. Simply being in the room is enough. In the same way, your emotional atmosphere is colored by the people around you. That is why choosing your company is not just a social decision, it's a spiritual and psychological necessity. Now, let's be realistic. We cannot always control who is in our lives. Family, colleagues, community, these relationships often come with obligations we cannot simply walk away from. But what we can control is the degree of access we allow. You may not be able to avoid every negative person, but you can limit how deeply you let their words and attitudes into your heart. You can draw boundaries that protect your peace. And just as importantly, you can actively seek out those whose presence nourishes rather than drains you. Positive influence does not mean people who are always laughing or pretending life is perfect. True positive influences are those who lift you closer to your best self. They are the ones who remind you of perspective when you forget, who challenge you when you are tempted to give up, who bring out your gratitude when you feel only despair. Sometimes their words are comforting, sometimes they are corrective, but always they are life-giving. Philosophers throughout history emphasize the importance of companions. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, gave the metaphor of the good companion being like the seller of musk, You may buy perfume from him, or at least walk away smelling pleasant simply from standing nearby. The bad companion, he said, is like the blacksmith's furnace. You may be burned, or at the very least walk away with the stench of smoke clinging to you. Modern psychology echoes this wisdom. Studies on social networks show that emotions, even habits, spread like contagions. If your close friends practice optimism, resilience, and kindness, you are more likely to develop those qualities yourself. If your environment is full of cynicism and bitterness, you will unconsciously mirror those as well. And let's not forget, influence is not only about people, it is also about the environments you place yourself in. What you watch, what you read, the conversations you entertain, even the social media accounts you follow, all of these act as companions to your soul. Ask yourself honestly, do they fill you with peace, or do they leave you agitated, resentful, or empty? Too many of us underestimate how much our daily consumption is shaping our mental landscape. Happiness requires being deliberate about what we feed our minds, just as health requires being deliberate about what we feed our bodies. I want you to pause and reflect. Who are the people in your life that bring out your gratitude, your patience, your courage? And who are the people that drain your energy, magnify your doubts, or encourage your worst impulses? This is not about judgment or superiority. It's about stewardship of your inner world. If you are serious about cultivating happiness, you must learn to walk with those who help you rise. And let me add this, being around positive influences is not just about what you receive, it is also about what you give. Become that influence for others. Be the person whose presence lightens the load of those around you. Smile when others frown, speak hope when others despair, radiate peace when others are restless. The best way to keep happiness alive in your own life is to be a source of it in the lives of others. In giving encouragement, you strengthen your own optimism. In being a light, you make your own path brighter. So surround yourself wisely. Seek those who inspire, limit those who drain, and strive to be the kind of person whose company itself feels like healing. Because at the end of the day, your environment is either pulling you down or lifting you higher, and your happiness depends on which one you choose. Remember this, you do not walk alone, and the footsteps beside you will either guide you toward despair or lead you toward joy. Choose your company with care, for your happiness walks with them. Happiness is not sustained by chance. It must be fed, maintained, and renewed. Just as health requires discipline, eating well, exercising, resting, so too does joy require its own set of habits. Too often we expect happiness to visit us like an uninvited guest, and then we feel abandoned when it does not show up. But happiness is not a visitor. It is a garden, and it grows only if you tend to it with daily practices. Consider for a moment how easily our days get consumed by stress, distraction, and negativity. If we are not intentional, the weight of life will pull us downward. That is why cultivating habits that nurture joy is not a luxury, it is a necessity. These habits act as anchors, keeping you steady when the waves of hardship try to toss you around. Let's think of some of them. Gratitude is perhaps the most powerful. Modern psychology has confirmed what spiritual traditions have been teaching for centuries. Gratitude rewires the brain. When you pause each day to name even a few things you are thankful for, whether it is your health, your breath, the roof over your head, or simply the ability to see the light of a new morning, you shift your focus from what is missing to what is present. And this shift alone can change the texture of your entire day. Another powerful habit is mindfulness or presence. We live in a time of constant noise, phones buzzing, news cycling endlessly, demands pulling us in every direction. Mindfulness is the deliberate choice to pause, to breathe, to be aware of this moment without being hijacked by regret over the past or fear about the future. It may be as simple as sitting quietly for a few minutes, paying attention to your breath, or truly savoring a meal without rushing. It may sound small, but it is these small acts of presence that protect your mind from being consumed by anxiety. Then there is the habit of movement. The connection between physical activity and mental well-being is undeniable. Exercise is not just about building a stronger body, it is about releasing stress, balancing emotions, and even producing the chemicals in the brain that create feelings of calm and happiness. Something as simple as a daily walk, a stretch in the morning, or a few minutes of physical exertion can lift your mood far more than waiting for circumstances to change. Acts of kindness are another habit that nurtures joy. When you step outside yourself, to ease the burden of another, whether it is offering a kind word, helping someone in need, or even just listening with compassion, you create a ripple effect of positivity. Strangely enough, it is in giving joy that we often feel the deepest joy ourselves. Happiness grows when shared. Even laughter is a habit worth cultivating. We sometimes underestimate its power, but laughter breaks tension, reduces stress, and softens the heaviness of hardship. Surround yourself with moments of lightness. Allow yourself to laugh, even when life is hard. Because laughter is not denial, it is survival. It reminds you that you are still alive, still capable of joy, even in the face of struggle. And finally, reflection, journaling, prayer, meditation. These practices help you process your emotions instead of being overwhelmed by them. Writing down your thoughts or speaking to your Creator allows you to release the weight you carry, and in that release you find clarity. Without reflection, pain piles up silently inside. With reflection, pain becomes wisdom. The key to all of this is consistency. One act of gratitude, one walk, one moment of kindness may feel small, but repeated daily, they become habits that slowly reshape your inner world. Just as drops of water eventually carve stone, these practices carve resilience and joy into your soul. So, ask yourself, what habits are you feeding daily? Because habits are not neutral, they are either building your happiness or draining it. Scrolling endlessly, complaining constantly, dwelling on negativity, these too are habits, but they suffocate joy instead of nurturing it. Replace them with habits that give life to your spirit, and you will find that happiness no longer feels distant. It becomes something alive within you, sustained by the rhythm of your daily actions. Remember this, joy is not found in a single grand achievement, but in the ordinary practices you repeat until they become part of who you are. Invest in those habits and happiness will no longer be something you chase, it will be something you live. Would you like me to go ahead and expand key point 6 as the final segment, so the full speech is complete and ready as one seamless piece? Here's the expanded 700-word segment for key point 6. Remember that happiness is a form of strength, written in the same clear, intellectual, and Mufti Menk inspired style as the rest of your speech. One of the greatest misconceptions about happiness is that it is fragile, that it belongs only to those whose lives are easy or whose paths are smooth. People often assume that to be happy is to be naive, that if you are smiling in hardship you must be pretending, or that choosing joy in difficult times is some form of weakness. But in reality it is the exact opposite. To choose happiness when life is simple requires little effort. To choose happiness when life is heavy, that is strength, that is courage, that is resilience in its purest form. Think about it. Anyone can be cheerful when the sun is shining, when money is flowing, when relationships are flourishing. That is natural. But when storms hit, when you feel the weight of uncertainty, when grief touches your heart, and yet you still find a reason to smile, still find gratitude, still find faith, then your happiness becomes an act of defiance against despair. It is no longer a mood, it is a power. This is why true happiness is not shallow. It is not about ignoring problems or distracting yourself with temporary pleasures. It is about carrying an inner calm that no storm can steal from you. Happiness in this sense is not about laughing all the time or pretending pain does not exist. It is about saying, yes, I am in pain. Yes, life is hard, but I will not allow this hardship to destroy my spirit. That decision, that inner strength, is what transforms happiness into a shield. Philosophically, this is deeply significant. The Stoics spoke of the unshaken mind, the ability to remain centered even when fortune turns against you. In the Quran, we are reminded that those who remember their Lord even in difficulty are granted a peace that transcends understanding. Modern psychology tells us the same. Resilience is not the absence of distress, but the ability to maintain hope and purpose despite it. In all these perspectives, happiness in hardship is seen not as weakness, but as mastery of the self. Think of the people you admire most. Chances are they are not those who lived without difficulty, but those who carried dignity through their struggles. The ones who faced betrayal, yet chose forgiveness, who faced loss, yet continued to give love, who endured failure, yet rose to try again. Their happiness was not built on conditions, it was built on strength of heart. That strength inspires us because it reminds us what we are capable of. Now, this does not mean you must suppress your feelings. Strength is not pretending you are unaffected. Strength is allowing yourself to feel deeply, to cry if you must, to acknowledge your grief and yet not remain imprisoned by it. It is giving yourself permission to hurt while still holding on to hope. Happiness and sorrow are not enemies. They can exist side by side. What matters is which one you allow to lead you forward. I want you to think about this in your own life. How many times have you told yourself, I'll be happy when things finally calm down? But what if they don't? What if life continues to throw one challenge after another? Will you wait forever, or will you decide that your joy cannot be held hostage by circumstances? That decision is strength. It is you reclaiming ownership of your spirit. And here is the most beautiful part. When you choose happiness as strength, you not only lift yourself, you also lift those around you. A strong tree not only stands firm in the storm, it also provides shelter for those beneath its shade. Your calmness, your faith, your optimism in the middle of hardship becomes a source of comfort for your family, your friends, your community. In strengthening yourself, you become a refuge for others. So do not ever mistake happiness for weakness. To smile through hardship, to live with gratitude in scarcity, to carry hope in the face of despair. That is one of the greatest forms of strength a human being can possess. Anyone can collapse under pressure. It takes true power to remain standing with peace in your heart. Remember this, your happiness is not a fragile flower that the storm will destroy. It is the mountain that the storm cannot move. Carry it with pride and let it remind you and everyone around you that even in hardship you are unbreakable.